Hey everybody, this is Chad Tornade, one of the hosts of the Pro Wrestling Almanac podcast. I just wanted to say thank you for listening and introduce you to one of our great sponsors.
ProWrestlingAlmanac.com is the website designed with wrestling fanatics in mind, featuring results from every major televised event, pay-per-view, and house show, championship histories, and a wrestler database. ProWrestlingAlmanac.com has the goal of being the go-to location for wrestling history and the house of the largest collection of independent wrestling promotions anywhere on the internet. Getting bigger every day. When you think of wrestling, think of ProWrestlingAlmanac.com. The online source for professional wrestling. The Pro Wrestling Almanac Podcast. Celebrating professional wrestling. From yesterday, today, and tomorrow. For wrestling fans, by wrestling fans.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Episode 5 of the Pro Wrestling Almanac Podcast. We have a great show for you tonight. On tonight's show, we will discuss the turmoil within Global Force Wrestling. Ronda Rousey and the Four Horsewomen of MMA meeting face-to-face with the Four Horsewomen of the WWE. The rumors regarding Baron Corbin and his position in the WWE, JBL leaving the SmackDown broadcast team, and the news of the WWE airing Raw live on Christmas Day. We will also be talking about the steel cage match from Raw, the verbal sparring of Roman Reigns and John Cena, Shane McMahon's suspension, and finally the number one contenders match between Randy Orton and Shinsuke Nakamura. We've also got an all-time classic match to review in the Ghost of Wrestling Past and another great promotion for our indie spotlight. But first, it's time for the Wrestling Results Roundup.
Wrestling Results Roundup. Here are the results of this week's televised shows. On NXT, Peyton Royce beat Ruby Riott, Heavy Machinery, Tucker Knight, and Otis Dozovic beat Johnny and Jimmy Boots and Tights, and Roderick Strong beat Bobby Roode. On Lucha Underground, Son of Madness beat Mascarita Sagrada, Marty the Moth Martinez beat Argenis, Joey Ryan beat Sexy Star, and Son of Havoc beat Son of Madness in a Boyle Heights biker brawl to win a Gift of the Gods Aztec medallion. On GFW Impact Wrestling, OVE, Jake and Dave Christ beat Falaba and Mario Baccara. Petey Williams beat Caleb Conley. Congo Kong beat Richard Justice. Low Key beat James Storm. And Global Champion Eli Drake and Chris Adonis beat Johnny Impact and Eddie Edwards. On WWE Main Event, Dana Brooke beat Alicia Fox and Mustafa Ali beat Arya Davari. On GFW Explosion, Desmond Xavier beat Braxton Sutter, and Andrew Everett and Octagon Cito beat Davey Richards and Demus. On Ring of Honor TV, Jay Lethal beat the Beer City Bruiser in a no disqualification match. Will Ferrara beat Howie Timbershea, and world champion Cody and Hangman Page fought Bully Ray and Mark Briscoe to a no contest. On WWE Raw, John Cena beat Jason Jordan, Sheamus and Cesaro beat Heath Slater and Rhino, Intercontinental Champion The Miz beat Jeff Hardy, Enzo Amore, Cedric Alexander, and Grand Metalik beat Tony Nese, Drew Gulak, and Noam Dar. Emma and Nia Jax beat Raw Women's Champion Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks and were added to the Raw Women's Championship match at No Mercy. Raw Tag Team Champions Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose beat Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, and Braun Strowman beat The Big Show in a steel cage match. On WWE SmackDown Live, SmackDown Women's Champion Natalya beat Carmella in a non-title match. Aiden English beat Sami Zayn. Baron Corbin beat Ty Dillinger. And Shinsuke Nakamura beat Randy Orton to become the number one contender to the WWE Championship. On WWE 205 Live, TJP beat Arya Daivari, Akira Tozawa beat Drew Gulak, and Enzo Amore beat the Brian Kendrick, Cedric Alexander, Gran Metalik, and Tony Nese in a fatal five-way to become the number one contender to the Cruiserweight Championship. And that's all for this week's Wrestling Results Roundup. Yeehaw!
It's been an eventful week in the world of wrestling, so let's begin with the wrestling news. I'm Mike alongside Chad and the brains behind ProWrestlingAlmanac.com, Tristan. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. I think I got a job today, so hooray.
That is very good news to hear.
Yes, it is.
How you doing, Chad?
Not too bad. Waiting on this smoke to die down up here in the Northwest, but other than that, it's one day at a time.
We're getting the smoke here.
Really, from the Montana fire?
And the Utah fire, and not the Utah fire, the Oregon fire, and the California fire. Yeah, pretty much every state that touches Utah is burning right now, so.
Yeah, we were at an air quality of like 350 on Monday.
So what is it like? What is that, like golf? The lower score is better?
Yes, much lower score the better.
Okay.
So we're like most places are 50, we're at 350. So it was like, do not go outside, keep your pets indoors. Terrible.
It's not good. I think I just read somewhere where over 1 million acres have already burned in Montana. So it's not good at all. So
well, let's get into something a little lighthearted then.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into this. Earlier this week, news came out that Jeff Jarrett is going to be taking an indefinite leave of absence from his position as the creative officer to focus on personal matters. What do you guys think into this?
That didn't seem like it was really big news to me. When it initially broke, it seemed like, hey guys, I'm taking a break. But then we found out that that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, it seemed like what I read. I mean, I first saw it and I was like, wait a second. He's out? And then it was like, okay, maybe he just stepped down to do some family stuff. And then come to find out, it was like, no, they asked him to step down. And it was like, wow.
Yeah. Now, I mean, from what I understand here, he's still in his same position. Like, his role hasn't changed. He's just not active in that role for the time being, but he's available as a consultant if need be.
I just found it kind of interesting that he posted on Twitter yesterday morning, Tuesday morning, let's go, super excited about September for at Impact Wrestling, at GFW Wrestling. And then literally later that afternoon, it comes out that he's out.
Yep.
Well, and that was one of the things that I read online. I guess he was supposed to appear on some at a pay-per-view or something, and it just...
There was speculation that he was going to be facing El Patron at Bound for Glory.
Bound for Glory, yeah. Other news that was coming out about this, too, is that allegedly it says that GFW and Anthem, the deal is nowhere near complete, and that Anthem is just bleeding money in this deal right now.
Well, I don't doubt that one little bit, because they bought a company that was in huge debt.
With Panda.
Yeah, well, they were, I mean, not really with Panda, because when Panda came and bought it, they didn't have ongoing lawsuits and a lot of debt to pay back to other companies. Because there was the one, I can't think of the name of it, but the Harris brothers ran it, or were part of the structure of it, and they funded a lot of the TV tapings. And so they had to pay that back. They had the settlement with Billy Corgan. Then you take into consideration the fact that they've started this global wrestling network, and that they purchased the rights to use the GFW name from Jeff Jarrett. And it's really not surprising that they're hemorrhaging money. But the story also goes on to say that they're actually getting to the point where they're considering selling GFW and getting out of the wrestling business. And that's kind of where, I hit the brakes on my believability vehicle. And I'm like, they've just renewed the agreement with Pop. They are launching this global wrestling network. I don't know. The two sides aren't lining up.
Well, especially, you don't spend that kind of money to try to put together your own version of the WWE network for GFW and Impact Wrestling only to be trying to get out of it. I just don't see that happening.
No, not
well, unless they're like they said, they're hemorrhaging money and finances and whatnot, and the only thing that they're going to be able to do to recoup that is to get the GFW network going, or whatever they're calling it. But as far as re-signing with Pop and whatnot, I listened to an interview with Eric Bischoff saying that at the point when WCW was being bought out by WWE, he had it planned for another network to pick it up, and everything was a go. He had financing and everything, and then at the last minute, that other network...
No, it was Turner. It wasn't another network. It was Turner. It was TBS and TNT.
They were going to sell him WCW, but he was not going to have any station to put it on. Yep. That was going to be the problem, and that's
what his backers cut out.
Right.
They pulled, so...
Yeah, because they said without a network, it would do nothing.
Yeah, and they were right. And then that's why WWE came in and bought it for, what, $12 million? $8 million? Some freaking paltry sum considering what they got for it.
I think it was even less than that, if I remember correctly. I could have swore they purchased it for as low as $2.5 million.
I don't know. All I know is that Chris Jericho said that if he'd have known that it was going to be sold for that little, he would have bought it himself.
I just looked it up. When WWE purchased WCW, they bought the copyrights to the WCW name for $2.5 million, and then after the purchase, Vince purchased the entire WCW library for an additional $1.7. So the whole sale for WCW wrestling was $4.2 million.
Wow! And then they picked up some contracts on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, that was just crazy that something that was that big during that time period went. So,
oh wow.
Yeah.
So I guess now the next question is if Anthem and GFW are really truly hemorrhaging money and people are trying to pull out, is Vince going to sweep in and try to take it over?
Okay, well, remember, before Anthem bought it, they were trying to sell it to Billy Corgan. Sinclair was looking at buying it. WWE was looking at buying it. So this isn't new ground. It's just this, to me, the potential wanting to sell story and all of that sounds like something to get people talking.
Well, guys, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The only thing that I'm worried about with this, if it's true about Anthem hemorrhaging money, is if it's going to make them want to dig their heels in even more on the Matt Hardy lawsuit for the ownership of the broken gimmick, or if they're going to now try to settle just so they can get an influx of cash.
Well, I mean, Matt Hardy is doing the broken gimmick. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's happening. They're just not going. They're just not going full.
Extent. Yeah. And you did have Michael Cole. You had Michael Cole actually on Raw when they were making their way down to the ring talking about Connor's cure. He even actually uses the deleted term when he said, we're going to try to delete childhood cancer.
Oh yeah.
So
and Matt interjected before Jeff's his interview and made sure that he did a broken Matt Hardy type, we'll say promo, but that's hardly what it was.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, that's it for GFW. You guys have anything else you want to say on that one?
No, I'm good.
I don't know if you guys were watching. Have any of you guys seen some of the video clips that have come out of the Mae Young Classic yet?
I'm like two episodes away from finishing out the Mae Young Classic.
I haven't watched any of the backstage stuff, but I've watched.
Okay, I haven't watched the second set that came out on Monday. I've been too busy, but on Facebook yesterday, I caught a brief segment that had the Four Horsewomen of the MMA, which is Ronda Rousey, Marina Shafir, and Jessamine Duke.
Jessamine,
sorry.
And Shayna Baszler.
Well, Shayna wasn't there because she was competing.
Right, but okay.
but she's part of the Four Horsewomen. They actually were doing an interview with them about Shayna, and that interview was interrupted by Bayley, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte. Sasha wasn't there, but it looks like we could be having that setup of the Four Horsewomen of the WWE versus the Four Horsewomen of MMA. What do you guys think?
Well, I'll take your praise for completely calling that now. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
you did.
It was kind of weird that we did talk about that last week, and I think I even messaged you when I was like,
yes.
Well, you called it.
Yeah, I do that. Well, okay. So let's just be fair here. I had known about the Ronda Rousey and the other Four Horsewomen being at the tapings of the Mae Young Classic. So I knew that they had fabricated some sort of confrontation between the two sides for the live audience there. So then when speculation started coming out about Ronda Rousey looking into coming to the WWE, it's just a 2-2 situation. And so it makes sense that they would do that at some type of a WrestleMania match. It looks like Charlotte's not anywhere close to a title. Becky's not anywhere close to a title. And Sasha will probably be out of the title picture shortly. And Bayley is, injured right now, but she should be back anytime soon. But I see, them moving on with Nia Jax and Emma and more in that direction with the Raw Women's Championship.
Well, and then you
potentially even Asuka.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you have Asuka possibly coming up. The other thing is, I keep hearing rumors that they have put Ronda in touch with Brian Kendrick, and that she has started training with him. So
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, not one bit. He's kind of their go-to guy for that sort of thing. They used him with Ava Marie. It's too bad that she had the wrestling ability of a moldy slice of bread. But, not his fault.
Well, yeah, he pretty much, he is their go-to guy for anyone who's out on the West Coast in the California area, which is where she lives, out in the Venice area. So another interesting tidbit of news that I was reading was Baron Corbin. Looks like the rumors behind him losing his push and the Money in the Bank cash-in were the results of a offstage involvement with Dr. Joseph Maroon, where they brought the wrestlers in and were talking to them about concussion protocol. Right. And things kind of got not heated, because the reports are saying that, he didn't start yelling and they weren't shouting. He was just kind of disagreeing with him because Corbin was in the NFL and is actually part of the NFL lawsuit. So, take on this one?
It just shows that the wrestling news hounds will take any little nibble that they can get and try to build a story on it. Okay, Baron Corbin loses his Money in the Bank cash-in. He loses to John Cena in the opening match of SummerSlam. All right, so we take that to mean that because Baron Corbin had been doing some, we'll say, unseemly things on Twitter, that the two have to be connected with absolutely no evidence to support that. And then this other story comes out that no, this is actually something quite legitimate, in which Baron Corbin did not behave in a professional manner and did not handle himself well, and made a big meeting that was quite important given the subject matter, and turned it into for lack of a better term, a circus, by making it become an argument between himself and this doctor over something that the doctor had said while working with the NFL. And personally, I think good on them for smacking his hand a little bit. Maybe you don't do it so much on TV. Maybe you do it a little bit more backstage where people aren't going to see it and wonder what's going on, that seems a little juvenile on the WWE side.
Baron Corbin, when he first came in, he was very much a, why am I not pushed to the top? I deserve to be pushed to the top. I don't think you should punish somebody on TV for the things that are happening backstage. And WWE is very good about punishing people on TV. I mean, we've seen it a few times. I mean, even with like Lana and Rusev, because they got married, well, we're going to punish them on TV and take them out of the main or the top card. So, I mean, it's just, I think it's a little bit ridiculous.
My only question is then, what other recourse would they have? Because, I mean, for me, it's more along the lines of, with this situation, just wrong place, wrong time. You can question, this doctor and what he has to say. I think where the WWE had the problem with it is that he was doing it in front of the entire locker room.
Right.
And Joseph Maroon is the go-to guy. So in a scenario like this, or with Lana and Rusev, it almost seems like that's the only way you can punish them is on TV, because they have to be on TV. So, I mean, what would you do?
Well, let's get away from the Lana and Rusev thing right now, because there is no reason for a couple that gets married to be punished, if that was even the case, but to be punished because somebody thinks that one person shouldn't be with the other person. That's ridiculous. Let's keep it to the Baron Corbin, the Baron issue Corbin. At hand. This is a guy. You want to know how else you punish him? You fine the guy.
Give him pay $10,000, $20,000. I mean, you look at. I mean, what's the wellness protocol where if you don't pass the drug test, what is your?
They get suspended for 30 days.
Suspended for 30 days.
Yeah.
A fine would not be unreasonable, in my opinion, because baseball players get fined thousands of dollars if they're late to practice.
Yeah, I just think maybe with Vince's thinking is that if he makes someone an example by ending their pushing on TV, it just kind of keeps everybody else in check.
Well, and then they did something with Titus before when Titus put his hands on Vince.
They suspended
him for 90 days.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think if I remember, Vince dropped the suspension down to 30. But it was originally a 90-day suspension, which a lot of people thought was crazy. But given the circumstances, during the Daniel Bryan retirement.
Hey, you don't manhandle a 70-year-old man.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So, another interesting news came out early this week. JBL leaves the SmackDown team.
Yep.
Stepping down from the booth that he's been in since 2006 and is going to be replaced by Corey Graves.
Has been replaced by Corey Graves.
Has been replaced as of yesterday. I love Corey Graves. I think he does an amazing job on color on both Raw and SmackDown. I was really excited because I don't think anybody describes the Kinshasa as good as he does. What do you guys think?
I mean, given why he's leaving, it all makes sense. The guy lives in Bermuda, so he's traveling to wherever every week. Now, apparently, this is something that's come up months ago. I read he may have given notice as long as 11 months ago. And it's rooted in this travel that WWE is like, hey, everybody that's going to be on TV needs to be in town the night before. So JBL would have to leave on Sunday in order to make it to town on Tuesday. Now, for somebody who's just doing one TV show a week and is the very essence of a part-time performer, that's rough because, he's working one day a week.
But it's taking 3.
But it's at least 3. He's got to travel home, too. So he changed his flights to be on his own accord, changed his flights to arrive into the town on Tuesdays. And WWE confronted him about it, and he said, well, I can't keep doing this, so deuces. And he gave plenty of time for them to be able to find a replacement. I'm sure they probably decided that on Corey Graves a long time ago, and they just wanted him to be up to speed because he really hasn't been doing the main roster commentary for all that long himself. And so
No, he was still splitting time though between them and 205 and NXT. Now Nigel is going to be making his way up to 205.
Has done.
From what
he was on this week's 205 Live.
Was he on this week?
Yes, he was, and he's doing main event.
Yeah, like I said, I've always liked Corey Graves. Think he does a great job. I love his one-liners. It is very reminiscent for me of some of the things he says, and I've said it before, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yep.
Just the way he acts. I just worry that if he keeps up between Raw and SmackDown, especially with them being in different cities, that he's going to get burnt out, which I don't want to see happen. So.
Well, remember, he was doing 205 Live, so...
He was already there. That's right. So,
and
Chad?
so...
Oh, well, I know I was talking earlier about this, and I mean, Corey Graves is great. He was great. He was a great wrestler, and it's unfortunate that he can't continue to wrestle. So if I can still enjoy him, I mean, I even like the show that he had on. I don't even know if they still have it. The Superstar Inc.
It's still on.
Inked.
It's Superstar Inc.
Yeah, it's still there.
And I mean, that was a good show. That's where I mean, aside from watching him wrestle, that's where I really got to know him and hear him talk and all that stuff. So he's got a great. His voice is good for listening to. It's a good. It's just a good voice that you can listen to. But the way he talks and the way he explains everything, it's perfect. I mean, he could very well be the next. I mean, I hate to give him this, but he could very well be the next JR.
JR did say when I was listening to his podcast this week, he said that Corey Graves, unfortunately because of the concussions, is no longer able to wrestle, but he is going to make more money as a color commentator broadcasting wrestling matches than he ever would have made as a wrestler in his career. That's how good he is. And JR said he's becoming one of his favorite color guys to listen to. So I think hands down, good idea. You guys?
Absolutely.
Good idea?
I mean, great idea.
Another one that's coming up, and this one's kind of a little bit of a touchy subject for people. WWE is going to be airing Monday Night Raw live on Christmas Day.
And New Year's Day.
And New Year's Day,
but
too.
Nobody really seems to care about New Year's Day.
Yeah, New Year's Day, I don't think people really care about. I mean, it's pretty much college football, the Rose Parade, and recovering from hangovers on New Year's Eve. But Christmas Day is the one I think that people are having a problem with. What's your guys' take? I
mean, my thing is and my wife and I have this big controversy with this because I don't like to do much of anything on Christmas. Her family, they had a thing, or they have a tradition where they go to the movies on Christmas. I know I have said sometimes, it would be great to go to a theme park on Christmas, but at the same time, if I want to spend time with my family, I think that everybody else should have the option to spend time with their family on a more family-oriented holiday. I mean, I know not everybody has family, but even spend time with friends. Going and doing, especially a live show where you take, I mean, all the camera crews, all the people that have to set up and tear down the facility, and then you got all the people in the arena. Are we really going to sell a lot of tickets for the Christmas?
They've done wrestling shows on Christmas for years. It's just never been a televised show. So, I mean, it hasn't been a problem in the past. And I'm talking several years ago. But, I mean, Ric Flair talks about doing 2 shows on Christmas. They used to do Starrcade and Survivor Series on Thanksgiving.
Well, and a lot of the older wrestling promotions used to do a big show on Thanksgiving, too. I mean,
that's what I was just saying.
Big times for the territories back in the day, but I don't know. I mean, like, for me personally, I probably won't be able to watch it on Christmas Day. I mean, Christmas Eve is spent out in LA with my family, and then literally Christmas Day becomes a whole full day event. I mean, we don't even get home until at least 9 o'clock in the evening on Christmas night.
Well, you're kind of missing the point on this, though. It's not that they're airing a show on Christmas. They've aired
Raw
aired it, but this is or SmackDown, but this is a live show. So they're not. It's not like they're expecting ratings to be high, but the fact is that they're doing a live show, which means that, like you were saying, all those people have to be away from their families.
Well, but see, what I'm trying to go with that is that why, and from what I've read, and I don't know if you guys have read it as well, that this was actually not the WWE's decision. This was the USA Network's decision.
That doesn't surprise me because WWE has done taped Christmas shows and New Year's shows for the past several years. They would tape the Christmas and New Year's shows, I think, like back to back, and then have like 2 weeks off.
My biggest thing is, and where I was leading to on this is, I just don't think this is a good idea. I know Jeff Hardy's wife tweeted about it, that she is not happy, that they're not going to be able to spend Christmas Day with Jeff. My thing is, I wonder how the ratings are going to be, because you're going to put on this live show. We're already past unless they're trying to set up a major angle getting ready for the Rumble, it just doesn't, to me, seem like a really important show that I'm going to have to watch. And I wouldn't want to go to that show. I have so much stuff going on Christmas Day that if they were, they could be holding Monday Night Raw for the first time ever at Citizens Bank Arena in Ontario, which is 15 minutes from my house, and giving away free tickets, and I'm still not going to be able to go to that show.
So, right, and that's what I was saying about them not being able to sell out the arena. We'll see how big of a show it's going to be. Or
do we even know where they're going to be holding the Raw?
I saw a headline that said that they decided on the dates, but I didn't read the story. Or they decided on the venues,
Unless they do it in Tampa, and then all the wrestlers are going to be fine, because they all drive there anyway from their houses. So, that would be a smart place to have it, so then all the guys are already home.
Yeah, there's a few that live. The Hardys live in the Carolinas still. I'm trying to see where.
They just live in one of the Carolinas, Mike. The top one.
The top one?
Yeah.
North Carolina?
Yeah.
That would be the top one.
You're smart.
I know. It's that Catholic education.
Okay, so you're smart and poisoned.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So
no, I don't see where it is. That would be interesting to find out where it is, because depending on where is really going to determine on how big of a crowd they're going to have, and what the turnout's going to be. So, yeah.
I think they'd be smart to do. Bad idea.
I agree. Bad idea. I don't like it.
Horrible idea.
Yep.
Okay, so we all agree on that one. Did you guys watch the cage match on Raw?
Yes.
Saw clips.
Oh boy.
I'm telling you, Chad, you have to, do yourself a favor today, tomorrow, whenever you get a chance. You've got to watch that match in its entirety. From start to finish to when the match was over.
To Big Show doing his best Macho Man impression.
It was
a surprisingly good top rope elbow drop.
Yes, it was.
And not just for a 500-pound guy, for anybody that doesn't typically go off the top rope. That was really good.
It was. He used to do that move a lot when he was younger, especially back in WCW. But for those two guys to be in a cage, to be doing moves off of the top rope as much as they were, Big Show did a hell of a job putting Strowman over.
Yeah, he did. And Strowman, to his credit, did a hell of a job putting Big Show over.
Mm-hmm.
They've never stopped. They've never stopped perpetuating the fact that the Big Show is a threat. And so if that's the case, then Braun Strowman, it needs to be difficult for him. And it was. But
now, sorry to interrupt, but before we continue, let's preface that the rumors that are going around right now is that Big Show is actually going to be going out for a while because he's going to be having hip surgery.
And what better way to put somebody out than to have someone throw them through the side of a freaking cage?
Exactly. Chad, I mean, from the clips that you saw,
no, that was one of the clips that I saw was
okay.
I hear Braun Strowman, because I mean, being on the West Coast, all my WWE newsfeed comes through from East Coast time. So I have all the results of Raw before Raw even starts. So it's like, oh man, or before Raw starts. Pacific
on the
time.
West Coast, yeah.
Right. So it's like, oh, Braun Strowman just gets throws Big Show through steel cage. So I'm like, oh, click that. Let's watch that. And it was like, well, I guess there's a first time for everything, because the last time I remember a cage getting broken open was when
St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
No. Was when Big Show, or when he first appeared as Big Show on I forget what pay-per-view.
St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Was it St. Valentine's Day Massacre?
Yes. Chad.
You're talking to the brain of the Pro Wrestling Almanac. Once again, there has only been one time ever, and Tristan and I have known each other now for almost, 15 years?
Yep.
I have only stumped him once in 15 years when it came to any wrestling trivia. I mean, it was, trust me, it was a very big highlight for me, because you never could stump this man. I mean, we would go to nationals and people would literally try to stump him, and they couldn't.
We'd be standing in line with other wrestling fanatics, and I mean, it was ridiculous.
Well, it was also like the time when we were at what was that, Mugs and Jugs, watching WrestleMania, and we had the trivia.
Yeah.
And we had $25 in gift cards because you knew everything. So we basically got our entire. And then when you told them it was, what was your Undertaker's original name when he was in WCW? And you go over there and you're like, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, no, you're wrong. It was this. And you're like, no, it was this. And they had to go research it. And then they gave you extra money or something like that.
They gave me that one. Yeah. I forgot all about that. Yeah. They had a whole, they had a DJ there that was between matches doing trivia questions. And I literally, I answered everyone.
All I know is if the WWE ever decides to do a game show for the network, you have to sign up.
Oh, yeah. Remember, I told you I tried to get on Beat the Geeks as one of the geeks to be the pro wrestling geek. Mm-hmm. So
it was crazy. But let's get back to the Big Show match.
But I mean, like I said, the only time I remember seeing someone go through the steel cage was when Paul White comes up through the ring and throws Stone Cold through the steel cage, the old school steel cage, which I really wish they would have brought back, because I love that steel cage more than the ones that they have now.
The guys, trust me, the guys prefer this cage. That cage, the big blue cage, that thing.
Oh, I'm sure it hurt
like hell. Now, here's my question. You have Strowman going over on the Big Show, does it in an extremely impressive fashion. It sets up the main event for No Mercy between Lesnar and Strowman. Where do you think they're going to go with this now? Because I don't see how you do not give the title to Strowman.
Well,
I do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. You can't not give the title to Strowman. I mean, I don't care who you are. Brock Lesnar or not, I know Tristan and I have gone in depth of who has been able to manhandle the Big Show. Brock. And we talked about who's stronger, who's this, who's that, because Tristan and I like to go back and forth between Bill Goldberg, Brock Lesnar. I'm a Bill Goldberg fan. He's a Brock Lesnar fan. And we were talking about, well, in WCW, Goldberg jackhammered the Giant and held him in that vertical suplex for a few seconds, which is impressive.
And Brock Lesnar gave the Big Show a overhead belly-to-belly suplex. Right. Goldberg is strong. Goldberg is freakishly strong. Brock Lesnar is South Dakota farm boy strong.
No, but what I'm saying is no one has manhandled the Big Show like Braun Strowman has. Period. No one has manhandled Brock Lesnar like Braun Strowman has.
Brock Lesnar's manhandled the Big Show like Braun Strowman has.
No.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
He has. I mean, it's not an arguable point. It's fact. It has happened repeatedly.
Well, okay, and both men have exploded the ring because of the Big Show.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I mean,
it's the fact of the matter is, Braun Strowman is a monster among men. He's got it like that. If you brought Mark Henry out here, and did Mark Henry retire? I don't know where Mark Henry is, but it would be one of those things where you could say Mark Henry is the world's strongest man, but yet you have Braun Strowman come in here and do like what they did between Triple H and Scott Steiner, have all these strong competitions. Braun Strowman has made it to a point where he is the strongest, he is the biggest, he is the baddest guy in WWE.
Right.
Plain and simple. There's nobody that comes close to him. You can't say that Brock Lesnar does, because he ate Brock Lesnar alive.
With two other guys involved in the match.
It doesn't matter.
You can always go back to that. There were two other guys involved in that match that were each targeting Brock Lesnar at the same time.
I mean, here's my thing, and this is just kind of the way I'm looking a little bit further down the line. Rumors are Brock isn't going to be making an appearance after No Mercy, won't be at Survivor Series coming up. Pretty much he'd be done for the rest of the year, which I find kind of ironic because...
We talked about that last year.
Yeah, because you have December coming up, which is Clash of the Champions, and that means the Universal title would have to be defended, but they're saying he's going to be done for the year. So I just see, Strowman winning the title, putting Lesnar out, do it as a storyline similar to what he did to the Big Show, and then have Lesnar come in during the Rumble, and then you go from there. I don't see how they keep the title on Lesnar after the strong performances that Strowman's had, knowing that the title would just disappear.
Well, and also, again, I don't think that you should have a part-timer hold the title, like when The Rock had the title.
Well, I disagree with that, but that's a different story for another time.
Yeah, that's a different, but no, we'll talk about that another time. But Tristan, your take on Strowman?
I don't know that Braun Strowman is going to win the title. I think that they're okay. Let me just back up a little bit here. In my opinion, the smart money is to put the title on Strowman. Let me say it, not necessarily the smart money. What makes the most sense is to put the title on Strowman and have Roman Reigns win the Royal Rumble, and then have Reigns finally beat Strowman at WrestleMania. To me, that is the logical endpoint of where the storylines have been going for the last 6 months. Is Reigns versus Strowman at WrestleMania, with Reigns finally coming out on top. So I'm going with that. I would like to think that the people that make millions of dollars doing this stuff would be able to know better than me. And if I can see that is the logical conclusion to the Roman Reigns Braun Strowman storyline, I would like to think that the people that do this professionally would be able to as well. So that is what I'm going with. Braun Strowman will win the title at No Mercy. But if Brock does win, one, I don't think it's the end of Strowman, period. He's too much of a powerhouse right now. They would really have to go a long way, like having Jeff Hardy beat him clean in a one-on-one match like they did with the Big Show.
Agreed.
For him to stop being a consistent threat to every champion in the company, period. Brock Lesnar has the credibility and the tenure as a superstar to believably beat Braun Strowman if that's the way they want to go with it. I was not surprised when he beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I was not surprised when he absolutely massacred John Cena at SummerSlam. And I will not be surprised if he beats Braun Strowman at No Mercy, because at the end of the day, Brock Lesnar will always be Brock Lesnar.
No, I agree. So, what you guys think about the Roman Reigns John Cena segment at Raw?
I liked that they let Roman get the better of Cena. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, but they must have told Cena just don't say anything.
Oh, of course they did.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if
there's no way there's no way that in a true promo or a true face-to-face competition or promo versus promo that Roman Reigns could out talk John Cena.
No, of course not. But the way that they did it, with him saying, come on, you want to do it? Do it. I'm standing right here. Do it, John. And then for Cena to stand there and do nothing really made that segment work.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as good as last week's. Last week's was just, it was one of the better promos I've seen on Raw in a while. This week was good. Can't wait to see where they go next week on Raw, getting ready. Well, we have 2 more weeks until No Mercy.
Yeah,
so
it's the 24th, yeah?
24th. So we have 2 more Monday Night Raws. It'll be interesting, because they've kind of had to speed this rivalry up to get it where they want it. So the next 2 weeks should be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where they go. Let's move over to SmackDown. Shane McMahon suspended indefinitely by his father.
I'm wondering if this isn't because of Shane wanting to step back a little bit, but rumor has it that they're setting up for a Hell in a Cell match between Shane and Kevin Owens. So,
well, and they've already proved. Was it last year's Hell in a Cell? They had 2 cell matches, correct? They had the women's match, and then they had
they've done multiple Hell in a Cell matches at Hell in a Cell every year since they've started it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see the chairman come back next week.
I'll be there.
You will?
I will. That's the SmackDown I'm going to, dude.
That's right. That's the SmackDown in Vegas.
Yeah, Sin City SmackDown. I'm super excited. Katie is super excited because she'll get to see AJ Styles, and she'll get to see the New Day, and she'll get to see Naomi and all of her favorites. And with Nakamura being the number 1 contender now, she's pretty certain that she's going to get to see him, and she can't wait to see Bobby Roode.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm happy for her. That's going to be a hell of a show. Taylor keeps trying to hound me. She's hounding me to get tickets for No Mercy.
Oh yeah, I may have told Katie about that. And if we wind up on the phone some point this week, I may have to put her on just to add some pressure to it.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later.
We'll discuss this.
Chad,
I told you though.
think?
I told you on the record on this podcast. You buy tickets to No Mercy. You get tickets to No Mercy. I will come down there.
I know you will. Chad, what do you think about the suspension?
I don't think it has anything to do with anything but the rivalry with Kevin Owens, and I mean, because I knew back when the Shane O'Mac screw job on Kevin Owens, I knew that there was going to be a Kevin Owens Shane McMahon match. There has to be.
Yeah. No,
that's where it's rumored to be going.
Yeah, and they'll put on a good match. Kevin Owens always puts on a good match. Shane definitely steps up for the big shows when he needs to.
They'll put on an entertaining match.
He'll put on his match at WrestleMania with AJ was probably one of the better matches on the card.
You mean AJ's match with him?
Well,
yeah. Let's call a spade a spade.
AJ carried the match, but still, I mean, it was a good match, and he's willing to take a big bump if need be. So, with Shane. So, like I said, I'm excited to see the chairman come back next week. It's been a while since we've seen Mr. McMahon on TV.
Since the day after WrestleMania when he introduced Kurt Angle, I think.
Yeah, that's right. We haven't seen him since then. So, and then finally, by the way, how'd you guys like the opening of SmackDown?
I mean, it was different. I've never really seen a segment like that started off as a match and then devolved into a segment, which evolved into a fight, which then led right back into the match that was supposed to happen.
Well, I'm actually talking even before that, when they had the interviews with Shinsuke and Orton playing before the match instead of going into a promo. But yeah, that was interesting. Starting a match, stopping it, cutting a promo, and then going right into the match. Yeah. I mean, that was something that we're not used to. So,
and if it did start with those cut-in interviews like that, then that's brilliant too. The fact that they have different presentation for the different shows, I really do like.
Well, those pre-cut interviews at the beginning of the show, it gives for someone like me and you, I mean, that's kind of an old school feel. I mean, we're talking old school.
Remember when they brought back Saturday Night's Main Event and they did the old insert style interviews, and they started Saturday Night's Main Event with the cut-in promos? Like they did on the old ones. I loved it. The show itself was terrible, but I loved them.
But it's something different than the wrestler comes out, cuts a 20-minute promo, and then we finally get into a match. I mean, they did a quick thing, and
Raw started with a match this week too.
Yeah. So, Chad?
I actually didn't catch it, so I'm gonna stay quiet with this. But the only thing I was gonna say is I do miss it back when like Raw used to start, and it was on last week's episode of Raw. It did that, so kind of recap last week's episode. I'm just saying, I used to like it when they used to do that. So.
If it was a big thing, they still kind of throw a video package in there.
Yeah, I mean, especially if something big happened, if it was a big event to finish off Raw, they'll still carry it over. Number one contenders match, Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura.
God, that match was good.
It was. I mean, those two can put on an amazing match.
Let me just say what I think is the most important thing coming out of this, all right? Shinsuke Nakamura has won 2 consecutive number one contendership matches against John Cena and Randy Orton. He has beaten, arguably, the 2 biggest names in WWE, clean as a whistle, to become the number one contender. You will never, ever be able to convince me, no matter what happens from here on out, that they did and do not view Shinsuke as a top guy.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, the fact that Shinsuke is a top guy.
Yeah. Just like what they did with AJ Styles and having him beat John Cena at 2 consecutive, well, not 2 consecutive pay-per-views, but 2 pay-per-views in one-on-one matches. And
it's gonna be a good match, I think, at No Mercy. Or not, sorry.
Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell.
We got a long time to wait for that one. It's October 30th.
Yeah, we do. Hopefully, they can put a good match on. Normally, any match that Shinsuke's in is a good match. Question is, how is that going to work? Hell in a Cell, keep the Singh brothers out. They're going to have an interesting time trying to develop it. So, any last thoughts, guys? And then we'll move on.
Nope, not at all. I think Nakamura is amazing. Oh yes, I do have a thought. The dark match, on house shows over the last weekend, they've been doing triple threat matches between AJ Styles, Baron Corbin, and Nakamura. And so they've been keeping the interaction between AJ and Nakamura to a minimum. With Baron Corbin being the spoiler in there. They'll have a couple of quick flashes, and then Corbin will get involved with one or the other. And then the dark match on SmackDown this week was a tag match between Baron Corbin and Kevin Owens against AJ Styles and Nakamura. And by doing this, the WWE has to have something in mind down the road for some kind of a match between AJ and Nakamura. Again, we're talking about guys that get paid a lot of money to do wrestling and to make matches. And while they don't always hit, they hit more times than they miss, without a doubt. And they can't be so stupid as to not realize that that is a money match. And if it doesn't main event whatever show they finally decide to pull the trigger on, fingers crossed that it's WrestleMania, they will destroy the rest of the card. Anything that has to follow that match, assuming that something doesn't go horribly, horribly wrong, will suffer.
If WWE wanted to do an entire pay-per-view on just that one match,
people would pay for it.
People would pay for it. So, all right. Well, that's it then for the news segment. And then just a reminder, folks, check out our website, ProWrestlingAlmanac.com, for all your wrestling results.
It's a pretty great website, if I do say so myself. Not like I designed it or anything, but my mom also says it's good, so you can believe her.
Not at all. And also, folks, check us out on Facebook at PW Almanac, Facebook and Twitter. And guys, right now, time for Ghost or Wrestling Past.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold?
I am.
Who? What are you?
I am the ghost.
Wrestling's
past.
Okay, so in the past we've covered entire shows, but Mike decided that was a little bit too cumbersome to do week after week with watching all of the weekly shows, to have to tack on a 3-4 hour pay-per-view on top of that.
Just a tad.
Yeah. So we decided that on the some of these other weeks that we'll still do full shows occasionally if somebody wants to do one, but we decided that we would do matches as well. And I decided to pick what I believe to be the most important match in WWE history. Now, there's a lot of important matches in WWE history. You've got Buddy Rogers versus Lou Thesz for the NWA title, which started the WWF. You've got Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik. This one, in my opinion, trumps all of those because it led to the Attitude Era, and I'm talking about the submission match at WrestleMania 13 between Bret Hart and Steve Austin. Now, WrestleMania 13 was not great, to put it in a nice way.
Oh, come on. How could you not like the Chicago Street Brawl?
Go stand in the corner while the grown-ups talk, Mike.
Okay.
It wasn't me this time.
Yeah, well, it's kind of...
I thought I'd save you this week, Chad.
Yeah.
Took a bullet for you.
This was a one-match show in every sense of the word, and unlike, say, maybe WrestleMania 12, it wasn't designed to be a one-match show. But I wanted to talk about this match because I have long maintained, we talked about this before, Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler of all time, hands down. I have maintained that Bret Hart did more for the career of Steve Austin, or for Stone Cold Steve Austin, than any other person, including Steve Austin. Now, let's just rewind back to 1996. Bret has lost the title to Shawn Michaels, and he's now on a hiatus. Thanks to Shawn Michaels and Triple H being perpetual teenagers, Triple H gets punished, and the King of the Ring is no longer his for the taking, and they give it to Steve Austin. Austin 316 is born, history is made, and they followed up on that monumentous occasion by putting Steve Austin in the free-for-all match at SummerSlam against Yokozuna in a match that had the sole purpose of embarrassing Yokozuna about his weight. I kid you not. Austin came out, didn't get up on one specific turnbuckle. Yokozuna beat him up the entire match, went for the bonsai drop, the rope pulled off of the turnbuckle, and Yokozuna fell, and Austin pinned him. So, yeah, with his sole purpose of embarrassing Yokozuna.
Well, he was out of the WWF right after that, too,
yes,
correct?
he was. Well, I think he was under contract for a good period of time until he died.
But they
quit using him. Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing him on like a Diet Pepsi commercial at some point, not too long before his death, where they were talking about, how he's lost some weight. It was two sumo wrestlers. It was pretty funny. But I only ever saw the commercial once, so I can't be certain that it actually exists. But anyway, so in October, when Steve Austin he's done some things. He's won a number one contendership battle royal on Raw and here and there, but he's not getting the treatment that he should be getting after winning the King of the Ring, the treatment that the prior 3 King of the Ring winners had all gotten. And obviously this is because, 1, he was the second choice for that, and 2, Vince never saw him as a top guy. Austin talks about in his book that he was going to be a mechanic. He'd probably only hold the Intercontinental title at most. And he that was a role that Vince wanted him in, and obviously Austin was not okay with that, but he was getting a paycheck and he was going out there and doing what he did. And Bret Hart came back and he cut his promo about whether or not he was going to go to WCW. And he said he was going to stay in the WWF. And then he said that he wanted to face who he believed to be the most talented wrestler in the WWF at the time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So Stone Cold Steve Austin had said something in response to Bret Hart coming back prior to this promo, that if you put the letter S in front of the word Hitman, you have my exact opinion of Bret Hart. They went back and forth, setting up a match for Survivor Series, and Bret Hart was fairly respectful because he was still Bret Hart. And Steve Austin was anything but respectful. I remember watching live, watching on first airing an episode of Superstars, and Brian Pillman, who was unable to wrestle at the time because of his ankle injury, was doing an interview with Steve Austin. And he said, so there we have it, folks, at Survivor Series. Now, wait, remember, Brian Pillman and Steve Austin were tag team partners in WCW, and they didn't ignore that history. So Brian Pillman says, so ladies and gentlemen, at the Survivor Series, it will be Stone Cold Steve Austin versus the best there is, the best there was, and Austin attacked him and beat the crap out of him. And they beat him down with his cane, and that's when he put the chair over his ankle and stomped on the chair. And I'd never seen anything like that. I was 16, 15 years old at the time. And that had me hooked. I liked Stone Cold Steve Austin. So we go to Survivor Series. They have a great match, and Bret wins in what Steve Austin coined the luckiest 3 seconds of your life. They feud through the Royal Rumble with Bret Hart eliminating Steve Austin from the Royal Rumble while Terry Funk and Mankind are brawling on the other side of the ring, and all 4 referees are distracted. Austin gets back in the ring and ultimately wins the Royal Rumble.
Great move, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. They tried to do it again a couple years later with X-Pac, and it was just dumb.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that really could only be done one time, and there has to be a long time in between it. But then they Gorilla Monsoon stripped Austin of his title shot and said they were going to have a number 1 contender match at In Your House. Now, mind you, before this, Bret quit the WWF. He came out and said, "This is stupid, I quit." So Brett wins the title. Oh, Shawn Michaels forfeits the title. They make the match at In Your House a title match. Brett wins. Austin costs Brett the title the next night on Raw to Sid, and that sets up the match at WrestleMania, and they make it a submission match with Ken Shamrock as the guest referee. One amazing piece. Now, I've also gone on record many times as saying that I think that 1997 is the best year of professional wrestling, period. WCW was great with the build-up to Sting and the NWO. WWF was great with the rise of Stone Cold and the Hart Foundation and the rise of DX. It was amazing. And then even ECW was killing it and getting recognized on a national level. And so one of the most brilliant pieces of storytelling that I can remember the WWE doing is the week or 2 weeks before WrestleMania, they had a title match between Brett and Sid. And it was a steel cage match. And the match occurred with the caveat that if Brett won, his match with Steve Austin would be for the title. And The Undertaker and Sid would face in a non-title match. So Steve Austin came out and was helping Bret Hart to win the match. And then The Undertaker came out and cost Bret Hart the match. And that was when Bret Hart went on his famous profane tirade, "This is bullshit," live on Raw, shoved Vince to the ground. So Steve Austin says that ever since you came back to the World Wrestling Federation, you ain't done nothing but cry. And a lot of the fans were kind of believing the same thing. So going into this match, Steve Austin was still very much a heel. But he was getting cheers. And Bret Hart was still very much a face. He was still trying to do the right thing and be that guy. But the people just weren't feeling it like they did before. And so you had an interesting dynamic where you had two guys getting mixed reactions going into this match. And they proceeded to put on what is my favorite match of all time, what is arguably the best match in WrestleMania history, that was the match that turned Steve Austin from a superstar into a megastar. But we've got enough backstory. Let's go ahead and talk about the match. First, one very important note is that Bret Hart has said in his book that Steve Austin said that he had never bladed before and was nervous to blade in that match. So Bret Hart said, "I'll be the first person to tell you to never let anyone else cut you, but I will do it if you want me to." And Austin agreed, and Bret Hart had a razor blade in his mouth for the entire match until the blade job.
But I could have sworn when I was watching the match, right after Austin hit the barrier, or the old style barriers, you could actually see on his black tape a blade.
Okay. I don't know about that, but I do know that was when Bret Hart bladed him.
Okay, because I could have sworn when I saw it, and it was his left arm exposed, because that's when he started wiping away at his head. I could have sworn I saw a blade there.
Okay.
But be that as it may, that match single-handedly turned Stone Cold Steve Austin into the toughest SOB in the WWF.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
And turned Bret Hart into a complete pariah.
Well, the interesting thing about that for me is you're talking about probably one of the more unique scenarios in wrestling history, because that started Bret Hart's quote-unquote heel run in the United States.
Yes.
But whenever they went to Canada, he was getting cheered like a face.
No. Not Canada. Everywhere else but the United States.
Well, yeah. Okay. Everywhere else but the United States.
In Canada, he got treated like he was Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, but and the same thing with Austin, though. I mean, Austin really was one of those first. He wasn't a good guy. He wasn't a bad guy. He was just a badass.
Yeah.
It was. Austin is in probably the top 3 of my all-time favorite wrestlers. Bret Hart is in that top 5. He's probably, for me, 4th or 5th in my top 5. But yeah, those two, amazing match. Just, it does go to show you, though, that this was a match that was more suited for Bret than it was Austin. Watching Austin try to put on that submission hold, other than when he finally got him in the Boston Crab, that was a little painful to watch.
Are we forgetting, though, that Steve Austin's finisher used to be the $1 Million Dream?
I know, which it was funny, but he didn't use it in that match.
You know why?
What was the reason?
That was what cost him the match at Survivor Series against Bret Hart. When he locked in the $1 Million Dream, Bret Hart walked the turnbuckle and flipped over and and pinned Austin.
Okay.
So logically, he would be hesitant to use that move.
To want to use that move again.
Yep. Another interesting little piece of trivia. This was the second one-on-one match between Bret Hart and Steve Austin. On TV, how many times did Bret Hart and Steve Austin wrestle? Now,
Wait,
argue
on TV or on
TV televised shows, TV pay-per-view, because arguably Bret Hart is Steve Austin's best feud, and inarguably is the feud that made Steve Austin.
2?
3.
Okay, Chad's right, 3 times. One-on-one matches, Survivor Series 96, WrestleMania 13, In Your House 14, right after WrestleMania. After that, Austin was in a title match, and then he transitioned in. Bret started feuding with Shawn Michaels, and Austin transitioned into feuding with Owen Hart. They faced each other in multi-man matches. In Your House Final Four, Royal Rumble 97, In Your House Canadian Stampede. But one-on-one, in what some people will say, myself included, is one of the greatest feuds of all time, and the feud that made Steve Austin. 3 times they faced each other.
Which is amazing, and it just goes to show the kind of work that those two did in the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I will always remember, and it is one of those visuals that anybody who watched during the Attitude Era, that vision of Stone Cold in the sharpshooter with the blood just pouring
It was a t-shirt.
down his face.
And they made it into a t-shirt.
They did make it into a t-shirt.
And then it was the start of the it was in that little first cinematic of the show, too.
The that visual, along with Mick Foley getting thrown off the Hell in a Cell, were probably the two most shown clips from the Attitude Era.
Mick Foley getting thrown off the cage, through the cage, and Austin getting submitted with the blood. That right there is the face of the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
I mean, I went back, I watched the match today. It had been a long time since I had seen that match. Easily for me, it had been over a decade since I had seen that match. And I agree with you. I mean, and we've been watching a lot of wrestling. I've been watching a lot more of the vintage stuff lately. And hands down, I agree with you. Probably the greatest match ever in WrestleMania history.
And like I said, probably the most important match in WWE history.
Well, it set up just everything. Like we said earlier, it set up Stone Cold turning into, the toughest SOB in the WWF.
Yep.
It started Bret Hart's heel run, which eventually led to his decline in the WWF, to the Montreal Screwjob, to him being gone, and then that set Austin up with his feud with Owen, which eventually led to his broken neck. I mean, it goes back, to that match, and I mean, incredible.
Yep. Chad, you told me something pretty interesting about this match earlier today.
Yeah, actually, the first time I ever watched this match was with Tristan. When he first moved down to Florida, he was staying with me. Yeah, he's like, hey, you want to watch this great match? And I was like, wait, that's not that match. And he was like, oh, yeah, it is. And so we put it on, and I just remember watching it for the first time with him. It was just like, oh, my gosh. This is probably the best match I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, in the WWF, you have a hard time finding a bad Bret Hart match.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really even say any of his tag matches were bad matches. I mean, the man was a consummate professional. It can go down as probably one of the greatest workers and safest workers in wrestling history. I mean, I can't recall a single time where Bret Hart injured another wrestler.
In his book, he describes a match with Randy Savage where he went to throw his knee around the ring post and he cracked Randy Savage's heel against the ring post and it broke his heel.
Okay.
And Savage did not miss any significant time because of that. So we're talking about a guy who's had one injury to his credit. That's pretty incredible.
It is, but then it just makes it even more sad for the way that his career ended.
Gosh. I don't mean to laugh but sometimes you laugh because you don't know what else to do. Here, let's go back to Chad. I want to know, Chad, we've had several disparate opinions on a lot of these shows. A lot of what we've talked about. We've had what can only be described as arguments over WrestleMania 9 and over Brock Lesnar yesterday against Brock Lesnar today. I want to know your opinion of this match and how just the match, how you felt it told the story and the double turn and how everything came together. I want to know what you think, and for once, I'm not going to interrupt you.
He won't interrupt you, but I will. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Not knowing all the backstory of what Tristan was explaining about how this led into this and this led into that, I did know that right before that was the King of the Ring where Austin wins and he is Austin 316 says, "I just whooped your ass." The match in itself, where it was just visually appealing in every way and technically sound, you really didn't realize that Austin was as good of a wrestler as he was until he was in the ring with Bret. And it also brings to light that Bret was truly the excellence of execution. And I'll give him all the credit in the world. I do think that Bret Hart in this match proves that he's the best wrestler to ever live, or one of the best technical wrestlers to ever live. And as far as building up Steve Austin as the baddest SOB on the planet, he took the beating. He never tapped. He passed out. That in itself says a lot. He never tapped out. Was his face all bloody? He didn't quit. His body just gave out. And I think they even said something about that in the match, where it was he never tapped out. His body couldn't take anymore. As far as storytelling, I don't know what you want me to say story-wise, but I just the
Do you feel the purpose of the match was to establish Steve Austin as a never say die character, to establish Steve Austin as a badass, to get the fan base to support Steve Austin, and to get them to turn against Bret Hart? Do you think that match, in and of itself, accomplished those things?
Oh, easily. Especially because of the rise of Austin 316 after King of the Ring. Especially in my time frame of wrestling. Austin 316 was probably when I first really started getting big into wrestling. So that being that huge part, and the fact that it was Bret Hart took it to him. They both did what they needed to do, and the fact that he never quit. He was never say die. He never quit. He never tapped. So the submission match, I don't know how they rule it today. I guess Bret won because
it was. It was a referee decision. It's ultimately what ended up happening.
Right.
Austin could no longer defend himself, so the referee stopped the fight for the safety of the fighter.
Yeah, and it was back in the day too, where they didn't change the ring out or the ring mat out too, because there was so much blood.
One thing I took from the match, and it was something I just barely picked up today while watching it, this was kind of also, you know how you were saying, this one match changed so much in wrestling. This was pretty much the start, at least that I can remember, of the Vince McMahon character, where he started breaking away from that I'm just a commentator to where we get to the Montreal Screwjob. Yep. Because he said something in that match that once again, it caught my ear that he had never done before. And he said, you know, if Bret Hart loses this match, I guarantee you he'll have an excuse, and I guarantee you he have one. And that I found very interesting because, like I said, prior to that, I don't remember. And I know towards the end of 96, beginning of 97, and going into WrestleMania, we started getting more and more of the Vince character. Mm-hmm. But that, to me, really, looking back now after what happened with the Montreal Screwjob, everything that we know with Bret having previously quit, come back, that was a very interesting line that was said during that match by Vince.
There was a few things that he said in that match that were definitely out of character for an announcer and pointed toward him becoming more of a character. And he kept his professionalism, but you could hear the biting tone. You
are so correct on how this one match changed everything in the wrestling business.
Yep. So let's just go ahead and we'll give our grade on the match here. I'm going to stand by, like I said, this is my favorite match ever. I think it's the best match in WrestleMania history. And that's in retrospect, of course, because like I said last week, the Eddie Guerrero match, at the time when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's the best match ever. And then the Chris Benoit match, that's the best match I've ever seen. In retrospect, looking back on it with the memories and how the match made me feel when I first saw it, this is, in my opinion, the best match of all time in the WWF.
I'd give it an A+, a solid A+. Just because of how lasting the visuals were in the match. And how they used it throughout the entire Attitude Era. Steve Austin's face covered in blood. And just with that, it leaves a lasting impression. So how can you have... I don't think you can have a bad match leave such a lasting impression throughout the era.
Yeah, I mean, A+, 5 stars, 6.5 star. Amazing match. Set up the Attitude Era. Set up massive changes for all of wrestling. Easily, hands down, best WrestleMania match ever. That's pretty much where I stand.
Okay, so now at this point, this would normally be where we would say, hey, Chad, it's your turn to pick a match. But last week we had said that we were going to take some time and talk about the Mae Young Classic, but we decided that with the finals being next week and the fact that I'm going to be at the finals in Vegas, that we decided to go ahead and dedicate this segment of the show to the entire tournament because it really deserves that. So next week, instead of the Ghosts of Wrestling Past, we're going to have the Ghosts of Wrestling Present, and we're going to be talking about the Mae Young Classic. So now let's go, and we're going to go to the Indie Spotlight.
Indie Wrestling. Indie Wrestling. Indie Wrestling. Indie Wrestling. Indie Wrestling. Indie Wrestling. Indie Wrestling, Indie Wrestling, Indie Wrestling, Indie Wrestling.
For this week's Indie Spotlight, I'm going to continue the theme of Colorado independent wrestling and talk to you about a promotion called New Era Wrestling. They're based out of Denver, Colorado, and they perform most of their shows at a venue called the Buffalo Rose in Golden, Colorado, which you may know of because it's where the Coors Brewery is. It's a pretty well-known town in Colorado, albeit a very small one. The promoter's name is Zach Bowen. He runs a very good show. Every month, New Era Wrestling puts on a show at the Buffalo Rose, and they have done so for the past 6 years. They just had their 6th anniversary show. They've done 72 shows at the Buffalo Rose, and they're just starting their 7th year of business with a show called American Dreams that's coming up this Saturday, and again will be at the Buffalo Rose. I've been to several New Era shows. I found their presentation to be quite professional. They always put on very good matches. The promotion, they've got, month-to-month storylines. They don't run any kind of TV or anything, but their storylines carry on month to month. They use a lot of the same wrestlers that the other promotions in Colorado do, but they use them differently. They have unique characters unique to the promotion, and they provide a family-friendly show, which is an alternative to other promotions that I've discussed, like Primos and Lucha Libre and Laughs, that cater more to the teen or adult audience. The promotion has 2 championships. They have the New Era Wrestling Championship, and they have the 5280 Championship, which is a Denver local title. Currently, the NEW champion is Duff Doyle, and the 5280 champion is Cody Devine. If you're in the Denver area and you're interested in attending a New Era Wrestling show, they sell tickets for only $10 at a show. The doors open at 5:30 p.m. and the show starts at 6 p.m. It's a show you can take your kids to. I've taken my kids many times. They've always had a great time. The Buffalo Rose is a great venue. They serve food. They have a bar, and I've never not enjoyed a show. They put on good matches. Very rarely do they bring in outside talent, so they rely on the local talent to produce a good show that the audience likes. They get the same people coming month after month, so they're producing a product that people like. Also this month, on September 30th, they're putting on a benefit show for the Chelsea Hutchinson Foundation. It's called the Mile High Metal Show, and that's, like I said, on September 30th at Mile High Comics in Denver, and the doors will open for that show at 5:30 and the show will start at 6 p.m. If you're interested in finding out more about New Era Wrestling, you can go to their website, neweraprowrestling.com. They're on Facebook at New Era Pro Wrestling and on Twitter at NEW Colorado. So check them out and give independent wrestling some much needed support. I will also be adding New Era Wrestling to the ProWrestlingAlmanac.com database, along with results and title histories. If you'd like to help us out and contribute results to the events that you've been to, either independent or major promotions, you can send those results to ProWrestlingAlmanac@gmail.com, and that way we can have the most complete wrestling database so we can reach our goal of being the one-stop shop for all things wrestling, as well as the home of the largest independent promotion database on the internet.
So that's it for this week, folks. Once again, please subscribe, review, like, comment on YouTube, iTunes, and Google Music under the title of Pro Wrestling Almanac. Check out the website, ProWrestlingAlmanac.com, and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, at PW Almanac. So until next week, I'm Mike for Chad and Tristan. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again when the bell rings.